Hello, this week on Loose Links, we discuss a burglary that has happened in Lincoln. But is this a cry out for help? Not initially crime. Also, we talk about the land of football as it turned into a violent game and not friendly anymore. And we finish on, is it important that exercise is in our lives, physically and mentally? Heated debate on that. All that on tonight's show. For the next hour, join us on Loose Links as you join me, Nicholas James, with the smile always on her face is Rachel Penny. Matthew Rose. I'm Vicky Pearson. As we talk about this week, we talk about a dance-a-thon that is happening in Lincolnshire. But is it important to keep those dancing shoes on? Is exercise something that is equal for everyone? We have quite a debate on that. Also, we talk about a appeal as a burglary has happened in Lincolnshire this week. But we discuss, is this a cry out for help? Not necessarily crime. And we finish on the land of football. And if we had to make a football name based on our names, believe me, you don't want to miss that. What we would call ourselves, and would you be cheering for us? All that and a lot more on this week's Loose Links. Good evening, panel. Rachel, that was a bit OTT there, love.
Better for you taking the mick out of it, that's why.
Rachel Penny.
Right, that's enough. Boring me now.
Good evening, panel. Welcome to the show. How are we all?
I was okay.
We've got a lot to talk about this week, and quite heated some of the debates last night from last night's interview, so it should be quite a good show. But let's start off as we always start off, as you are the fifth panel member at home, so it's just as important that we get your views as well as ours. So let's go on to last week's polls. So last week's polls was, during the pandemic, we made an effort which was made to get the homeless off the streets. Pandemic or no pandemic, should this happen regardless? Do you agree? 100% of you said yes. Did we have any comments on that?
Yeah, I've got one here from Shane A. Lesman.
Hi, Shane.
Who said, and many ended up back on the street. Can only help those that want helping.
Yeah, slightly agree with that, Shane, slightly agree. And the second poll was, the Isle of Man have strict laws regarding fireworks, a 10-day window around the 5th of November. Should the UK adapt similar restrictions? 82% of you said yes, and 18% of you said no. Do we have any comments on that?
Yeah, to Diane Francis.
Evening, Diane.
Fireworks can be dangerous to animals and humans, and only official firework displays should be allowed. And there's always going to be some people, like there has been every year, who use fireworks as weapons.
Oh, yeah. Well, I suppose, yeah, that it does happen in the UK. There has been stories on that based on fireworks, so there is a truth to that, Diane. Thank you for sharing. Make sure that you leave comments. We are, from this show onwards, going to be reading comments out, so make sure you put comments in our polls and you might be read out. This week, we start with some quite sad news. Really sad in Loose Links this week. Unfortunately, we've lost a dear friend and panel member, Georgina. She died in hospital last Monday after being very poorly in hospital. We're not going to discuss what she was poorly over, but she was poorly. So we want to dedicate this show to Georgina. She was a friend of the show. I would say she was on the show for about a year, and we are dedicating this show to her. She will be greatly, greatly missed by Loose Links, and always a part of the heart and soul of the family of Loose Links. So Georgina, if you're listening on us now, we send you lots of love and we miss you dearly. Did you all get a chance to, did you all work with Georgina and meet Georgina on this panel?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did.
Go on, Rachel, you tell us your reflection on Georgina to begin with.
Well, she was a very strong, opinionated lady. She had very strong opinions and wasn't frightened to voice them, but she'd always listen to somebody else's side. Never thrust it, down your throat and made you listen. But she was a kind, genuine, and a very honest person who just wanted to be loved as well, and like everybody does. And she was a strong spirit, but I enjoyed the company. I enjoyed it. Debates on here now and again when I was on probably three or four times with her on here, but I knew her as well. So, well, knew her slightly from the time I've been on here, but she was a lovely person, and it's it's a sad loss.
What about you two, Claire? Did you work with Georgina at all?
I'd worked with her a few times, and I was supposed to have met you all at the live show, but unfortunately with something that I caught, I couldn't, and Georgina would have been there. And when she went into hospital, I don't know her, and I just sent her a get well gift, which she received very, very kindly. So to then find out that she passed was really hard hitting.
What about you, Vicky? Did you work with Georgina?
I don't think we ever had a debate together on the show. Not that I can remember, and I'm pretty sure I would have remembered. But I met her when we did the advert at early September. We did for the new season. We all met up and had cake and got to meet each other. And in fact, because of COVID and things, and because I'd been shielding for so long, that would have been the first chance I would have met most people anyway. And she was incredibly kind, massive, larger than life person. Made a massive impact, a huge impact on me, and she gave me some Reiki for my back and neck, and came up with a lot of what I'd got going on, and at the end we ended up sitting chatting for ages. Both of us are quite deep with the way we think and the way we get into conversations. We're not one for small talk, so we really did discuss a lot, and I got to know her really well on just across a couple of hours, and was really, really quite sad to hear, first of all, that she was being taken into hospital, and then when the call came, it was quite a shock, really. And really, really sad, massive loss for everybody.
So we, as part of Loose Links, I'm finding it quite hard to talk about. Thank you, first of all, Georgina, if you're listening, thank you so much for everything that you gave to Loose Links. You are a massive part of it, and you helped it develop massively. I thank you with all my heart that you were part of this family, and she will always, always be part of this family. She will never be forgotten on Loose Links. So thank you so much, Georgina. We send our love and condolences out to all her friends and family. We are thinking about you, but rest in peace, Georgina, and rise in glory. We slowly move on, and we dedicate this whole show to Georgina. So we'll do what Georgina did best and talk. So let's have a discussion about what's happening in the news. Let's do it for her. Let's make a good show for her. So this week we talk about staff and 2 TV stars living in Lincoln will take part in a non-stop dance-a-thon for 12 hours. Unfortunately, I'm busy that day. A local nightclub to raise money for charity. The event will open for everyone to join in or watch. Will raise money for the British Heart Foundation. Will take place inside Fever Boutique, Lincoln on the High Street between 10 a.m. and 10 p.m. on Monday. So it did happen yesterday. But it did get me thinking because it's entered the world of news. Are we all dancers? Are we one for getting on that dance floor as soon as we hear music enter our ears? Are we first on the dance floor giving our dancing moves off? I can see you being a dancer, Claire. Are you one? So you're not a dancer unless you've had alcohol?
Well, I like to. I mean, I can't really dance. But, you know, once if you're out with your mates and they get up, then, yeah, I don't mind a little jig around the handbags, you know. But,
Jig around the handbags.
Yeah, I'm not usually the first one up. I like to wait till there's a few more on the dance floor before I show myself up.
What about you, Rachel? Are you a dancer?
Always a dancer. I've seen your moves as well. Yeah, I really love dancing, but of late I've been attached to a couple of crutches. But I went to a Dan Hadfield concert a couple of weeks ago on Saturday night, and as I had to dance, he's Gary Barlow, Lucky Likey, and singing like it. Yeah, it's really good. He's Lincoln's based as well, Lincolnshire. And I got these crutches. It was at the end of it, and there was a disco, and there was Ain't No Mountain High Enough by, is it Tina Turner? It starts off really slow, and nobody else could keep up. But I lifted myself off my crutches, and my legs went really fast. So like bees' wings they were. I'm quite impressed myself. I made myself a bit dizzy though, but yeah, I like a bit of a move now and again.
What about you, Vicky? Are you first on that dance floor leading the way?
No. No, I used to be a bit more of a punk rocker. So if like a punk or metal song comes on, I used to be pretty into headbanging, moshing, mosh pits, all of that sort of thing. And having a damaged spine pretty much eliminates all of those activities. And I say pretty much, it eliminates all of those activities. But when it comes to a normal dancing situation, I am definitely a bar prop. I don't do that. I mean, maybe if I'm really drunk, which I don't do anymore anyway, and even then they tend to throw on like a Green Day song or something, and I'm pogoing around the dance floor and everyone doesn't know what's going on. So I don't know, it's a cultural thing. I think I don't really know. I don't.
But let's get into discussion then a little bit. Let's talk about it. Claire, do you think when it comes to exercise and different ways of exercising, dance is a way of exercise? Do you think it's really important that we do this for the mind?
Well, I do, but again, for a woman of my age, it's just sort of the time. You know, everybody's different, and all age groups can do things or can't do things. So, you know, go back to me. I'm on my feet all day, you know. So for me, I haven't got my little Fitbit on, but usually I can do up to 10,000 steps a day. But then when I come home and then ferrying the kids around here, there and everywhere. So for me to actually get, you know, like go to a gym or do something like that, it's really difficult, and by Friday I've had it, you know. So,
but are we just finding excuses, Claire? Are we like because they say, don't they? If you really want to do it, you've got to make time. You've got, and we can all. And I'm not saying to any mum out there, I'm not saying it's not easy, but we can all find time to do something for our bodies if we really want to.
Yeah, no, I agree, because like I say, when, you know, one of my children is out dancing, then I could probably book a slot, but I don't want to. I don't like the way I look at the moment, because of course I have put a few poundage on over the lockdown, and that's not an excuse, but my head has to be in the right space. to do something like that, as if it's Slimming World or something. I don't want to diet because, you know, they work for the time you're doing it. And then, you know, when you finish that, you go back. So I need something that will work for me. But what that is at the moment, I don't know. No food and no drink, that would be great. But, you know.
You've got to enjoy it, though. You've got to enjoy exercise.
Definitely, yeah.
You don't keep it up. And the adrenaline and what actually happens to your body after that keeps you motivated, because you can see it starting to work and see you starting to benefit from it. So I think exercise is really important, mind and body. It works internally as well. It works all your organs inside, not just what you see on the outside. So it's really beneficial.
It is, but then I have heard about, you know, people who take up jogging and then get a bad heart. You know, you've got to do, I suppose, what's right for you, but don't overdo it. Don't, you know, do too much to start with. Just gradually.
Talking to your doctor, though, isn't it? And if someone says to me about exercise, I'm overly worried about my weight 24/7. It's something that completely controls my life. But we always find that excuse, don't we? If somebody says, well, why don't you do a bit more exercise? Well, I ain't got time. I'm going to work full time. I'm doing this, that and the other. And actually, realistically, we all have got time, but it's like very low on our priorities. And do you think maybe that we need to boost it up a little bit? Like like they say, don't they? Self-care isn't selfish, but the last person that we think about is ourselves. We're always thinking about other people. Do you think that needs to sort of change? And especially over lockdown, we've all put on those lockdown pounds. Do you think that we need to be doing a little bit of something to improve our lives? Vicky, let's go to you.
Well, I mean, before my car accident, I was obsessed with sport. Sport was my entire life. So, I mean, I played football and netball and hockey. I played every single sport you can name in a team or solo, or, you know, horses, climbing, kayaking. I was always obsessed with it, and all my life has always been dominated by sport. And then I had my car accident, obviously, and that was completely taken away from me. And, you know, before that, I mean, my regime at that point was 35 to 40 hours a week of training. I'd go to the gym before work at 7, start work at 8, have a shower, get into work, go to the gym when I'd finish work for an hour, or I'd go for a run. I'd run 5 to 10 miles. After work, I'd go out skating, I'd be off-road mountain biking, and then I had my skate training on top of that, and I'd do circuit classes on a Sunday before training, and it was everything. I mean, I weighed my food, I grilled chicken, I ate raw broccoli, I did everything you could, but then I had my car accident, and then slowly my health completely deteriorated, and things fell apart. And, you know, I've got to a point now that if I stand unsupported for 5-10 minutes, I start to get extreme pains in my head and my neck, and I end up with concussion. And even with crutches, I've got very limited amount of walking time before it triggers my head and my neck. And then, you know, and it is very serious. When I end up really sick, it's really, really bad. And it's really hard to get through. I mean, I would want nothing more in my life than to be able to go back and be fit and to do these things, and to, you know, even manual labor is an activity. I love sweeping. I grew up with horses, working with horses, and I was always sweeping the yard. I love. It's really weird, but I really enjoy just going out and sweeping with the brush, and I can't really do that anymore. I do think it's important, if you can exercise, you should, and whether that's walking to the shop instead of driving, if it's within a distance, or, you know, doing a bit of gardening, or doing something that's applicable to what you can do. But I think it makes people in my position feel really bad, because I have no access to anything really. I walk to the kitchen. And I know that, you know, you could laugh about that as someone who's put on weight or whatever, but that for me is a really big thing, because only 2 years ago I couldn't walk to the kitchen, and I worked myself up to the point I can walk to my own kitchen. I can go stand in my garden now, you know, and these are little tiny things that most people wouldn't even think are something, but to me I've taken 2 or 3 years to get to the point I can do those things. So those are massive, you know, and I will always push myself to whatever ability I can.
Do you think with disability then, Vicky, do you think, and I'll come around because I think we've all been affected by disability in some sort of way in our lives, but do you think disability, there's as much access as there is for the normal everyday person when it comes to exercise?
No, not at all. I mean, one of my absolute favourite comedians, I love to pieces, is Rosie Jones. I think she's hilarious, and she's such an amazing advocate for disability, and she's so funny with it, but she's so intelligent and she really knows what she's talking about. And she did a little segment on a show I really like called The Last Leg, which is a disability news show, which is amazing. And she went to all these different gyms to try and, you know, train, and a number of them wouldn't let her in. They wouldn't even accept the fact she should be going there. A lot of them had stairs, they didn't have elevators, the elevators were broken, and even when she then got into the gym, the changing rooms were actually also a cleaning closet and had cleaning products and mops and spills on the floor, you know, and they weren't fit for purpose at all, you know, and she kind of highlighted that. And then you've got the equipment might not be adapted. I mean, I don't know anywhere where you could have wheelchair access to fitness equipment, you know, that would have that facility. And it's the same, you know, even like, you know, I signed up for riding for the disabled 6 years ago, still on a waiting list.
Really?
Yeah. So,
That's
you know,
shocking.
all these things, yeah, not at all. And there's not really any funding. And I mean, when I first had my accident, I really wanted to train and keep strong and keep my weight off, because I knew that would be important. And I contacted so many gyms and so many personal trainers and said, I really want to work with you. I really want to do this. And then when I detailed what was wrong with me, no one would touch me. Everyone said I would not be insured to work with you. I wouldn't feel comfortable working with you. I couldn't have one-on-one training, like I couldn't access a gym, I couldn't access, you know, anything. Even a lot of physios wouldn't work with me. They signed me off and said that they can't because, you know, I'm having adverse reactions, you know, so I had absolutely nothing. I was just completely left to sit at home and not do anything.
That's really shocking. Claire, as a parent with a disability child, have you felt like there's been access and availability for your son, or have you had quite a struggle as a parent coming forward as well?
I just think there's no real funding out there, you know, like what Vicky was saying. So for my son, he loves wheelchair basketball. He's been doing that at the age of 8, and now he's like playing with the men, and it's brilliant for his self-esteem and his mental health. But we have to pay for that, and they give you a basic chair, but you know, the one that he wanted, you know, you have to pay for. And again, like what Vicky said, he would like to go to the gym, but he is a wheelchair user. So, you know, he probably could get out of it to access the stuff. But again, you'd have to go to see the gym first to get an induction and to see if they would be insured, you know. But give him his due. His room, he bought some weights, and he watched what he eats, you know, like chicken and things like that, and he's lost quite a bit of weight through, you know, just doing his own little bit. But again, have you ever been in a wheelchair? Oh my gosh. Christmas time we get the opportunity to play as families, and it's hard because you're trying to do the wheels, then you look in where the ball is, then you have to stop and shoot. So what I usually do is, as I've got the ball and I'm going to shoot, I forget to stop and end up in the wall.
But Rachel, do you find this shocking that our everyday needs that we need in this world? So let's go on Claire's story on the wheelchair. We have to pay for. Do you find that shocking, or do you think that should change when it comes to just basic human needs?
Well, it should change, but where's all this money going to come from? Because good health is very expensive. I've not been in the disabled world for well, I've put it off for quite a long time because with me with having Parkinson's, my back through the pandemic has gone a little bit skew-whiff, and this Pisa syndrome is bent over. So my stomach muscles don't hold me up as well. So I've been going to a neurophysio, and that's the best part of 70 quid an hour. And that's very, very costly, but that is for my own health. And, you know, a lot of people, well, I can't afford many sessions, but I'm trying my best to keep it going, and so I can do as much as I can at home. But you have to help yourself as well. I do Pilates classes. I've always been fit. For 30 odd years, I've done exercise combat. You know, I've done no end of things, but it's one of those things that should be available to people. If it's available to pay for, it should be available for people who can't afford it as well. I know there are certain trusts that you can apply for grants that will help people that are not means tested, but all this takes time. And when you've got something like Vicky, and one thing I must say, Vicky, it's phenomenal what you've gone through so far to get to where you are. I was quite astounded when I heard your story, but it is totally incredible. But things like that with Vicky, it is sudden, and it's an impact that is unimaginable. With me, Parkinson's, it came on gradually, and I've had various things before anyway, but it's one of those things that you cope with day by day, and you acclimatise to it gradually, and you try to adapt to it gradually, and so it creeps up on you slowly. But then with the pandemic and me stopping going out and doing any exercise at all, it suddenly smacked me and stopped me in my tracks, really. And I'm trying to gain a bit more of the ability back rather than disability. But I don't like saying I'm disabled, because I'm not. But I find it harder to do things, than I used to be able to. But there should be an easier route for people, because you don't, when you've got a disability or a problem with your body, you have to discover these things yourself. You don't get it thrown at you. You don't say, oh, well, you should be heading down this track, you should be getting this help and this help. You don't. You have to sort it yourself. And,
do you think, saying on that though, Rachel, going on that line, and all to all three of you, do you think that when we talk about disability, and even disability around the whole of the UK at the moment, do you think it's been a community that's almost forgotten about, and you've almost got to shout from the rooftops, we're still here? And it seems like, coming from all three of you, that you've had to push all the way through your lives to gain something, or to be listened to, and do you think if people without disabilities and influencers like Rosie that's on TV, that the disability world will almost be forgotten about? Do you feel that as people?
Yeah, massively. I think especially, I mean, it's really difficult as well, because there's certain conditions that you could say and people know what it is and you get that acknowledgement. Whereas if you've got something complicated, or, you know, especially as being a woman, you know, on average, a lot of conditions that affect women only take about 10 years to get a diagnosis for. You know, and women's health in particular is, you know, the medical model is based around the male body, so anything that is female predominant is really difficult. You don't get the acknowledgement off of the DWP, you don't get the acknowledgement from the social services, you don't get a lot of the support that you would other illnesses would get. You know, I contacted when I was in my absolute worst place, and I was really in a bad place, and I contacted some local charities that were there to help, and because I wasn't on a list of approved disabilities, I was unable to access any of the support they offered, even though what I was going through was worse than what some of those conditions might put somebody through. You know, and it is, I mean, I've exactly what Rachel said. I mean, when I had to use a wheelchair, I've said this before, you know, I cried for half an hour while my friend was pushing me around, jabbering on, because I felt weak as somebody that was in that position. And actually to put myself and actually go out the house and put myself in a wheelchair was really quite a strong thing to do, because it is incredibly hard to admit that you need that you have a health issue, that you have a disability. So a lot of people I know that won't apply for disability benefits because they don't want to class themselves as needing that, but actually when you hear what they go through and what they struggle with, they have every right to be put in that bracket. And I think that society as a whole has made disability or disabled people lesser than, you know, non-disabled people, and
it's shocking. Surely we need to be doing something about that. Surely we need to be.
We should. I mean, I've said before, I started a campaign recently to try and educate doctors on particularly women's health, and you know, how they treat people and the way a lot of people are when they're in those situations.
But it seems like, as the UK, so I'm not just talking about Lincolnshire here, as the UK, we're always like 10 steps behind, because I remember, I'm going to share something quite personal here, but I was diagnosed quite young as autistic. And I remember, in high school, I remember it like it was yesterday, and I hope and pray that education has moved on since I went to school. But where I used to go into the school classroom as a first diagnosed child, and would say to a teacher, oh, by the way, I've been recently diagnosed with autism. And every teacher would go back to me, what's autism? And I just think, why are we not on catch-up mode? Why are we not as big as other places around the world when it comes to disability?
It is different now, I must say, with me working in a primary school. We look into that very much so. And with it being, you know, younger children, a lot of their parents are sort of blinded. They don't want to admit that their child has, you know, something that needs to be looked at. And usually it is the teacher working alongside the parents to just say, you know, we will be there to support you. And our Senko is brilliant, you know, and like I say, you sounded like you've had a real bad time of it, but, you know, we have like courses and things to go on to learn about autism and different things.
But education could be better, couldn't it, Claire? It's better than what it was, but education could still, in all areas,
Totally. We had a meeting actually last week, all about disability in schools. You know, we've had fire training today about, you know, if there's people in wheelchairs, how do you get them? Do you know what I mean? So I don't think it's getting better, but I always think there's room for improvement. Yeah. Always.
Remember, you are the fifth panel member out there. Have your discussion. Do you think disability is part of 2021, and 2021 has got a lot of catching up to do when it comes to the world of being disabled? Do we need to look into it more carefully than we are doing? And as a disabled person, do you feel heard? Is your voice heard, or have we still got a very long way to go? Have your say. Moving on, keep with us as we discuss very, very soon the land of football, and if it's turned into friendly/violent sort of sports nowadays. And if we had to name a football team based on my name, believe me, you won't want to miss this episode of what we would call ourselves if we were a football team. I'll give you a clue. Pennies, dribbles. Not really. Not really.
Mean. You're so mean to Rachel.
Stay tuned.
You'll be alone with me one day.
Yeah, you'll find out a little bit more about that at the end of the show. But police are appealing for a witness to a commercial burglary on cash converters somewhere in Lincolnshire after 3 men forced their way into the shop overnight. Officers were called to reports of 3 men forcing entry into a shop at 3:56 a.m. on Friday morning. The 3 men are believed to have had sledgehammers with them, which would have been clearly visible. Now, when we talk about crime, we've talked about crime quite a lot in the show, but actually, I think it's more of a cry out for help when I really think about it, because we've been in this pandemic for 2 years and money is not easy for everyone. So Vicky, let's start at you. Do you think that we need to look case by case with stories like this? And do you think this could be a massive cry out for help?
Well, I mean, I always think everything should be looked at case by case. I don't think anything's ever black and white, nothing's simple. Everyone's got whatever's going on. You know, there's a lot of reasons why people do things. I do think there is people that are just in that lifestyle, and that's just the way either they've been brought up that way or they've had to be that way for whatever reason. That's the morals that they were brought with, and they don't really see that. Because there are people in poverty that don't sink to those levels, they don't end up in that situation. So having said that, there's things like there's a repeat offender syndrome now, which is kind of a personality disorder. I was speaking to a friend who works in probation services, and she specifically deals with those. And that's now a new clinical category for people that have that repetitive behaviour where they need to repeat, criminal acts for however that is. So, you've got that in which is then a mental disorder. So obviously then they've got issues there. Whether they have got anger issues and they're just angry with the system, whether they're angry with the benefit system, they're angry with the government, they're angry with business owners, misdirected or maybe not misdirected. You don't know, maybe they've got something personal going on, maybe they were related to, they'd worked at the store. There's so many different reasons, and I think you have to look at all of that really and take everything into account, as to why that happened.
Or do they just want 3 hot meals a day, a roof over their head, learn a new thing? I'm not saying it, I've never been in prison, but when you look at the prison system, they're overrun, and then you look at our old people, and they can't afford to put the heating on. So I'm not, of course, I didn't know that these reoffenders, it is an illness, and I do feel for them, but something has to be done. Why do we our offenders who go to prison get treated like they get what they get?
Claire, we can't. I slightly disagree, because we can't. This frustrates me. This conversation that I have with people about, well, look at our older generation. They can't afford to put the heating on. Well, actually, when we look at it now, there's a lot more schemes to be helping the older generation now. There's the cold weather scheme that's come out that's putting money in their bank to put heating on and stuff like this. And it's
with the benefit system, are these people getting told that? Because I never got told a lot of things that I probably could have claimed for my son when he was growing up. So that there is like a warm front thing, but do these old people know that? Is there somebody going out there to ensure that our old people are being looked after? Because they're not lucky, a lot of them, to have family or even friends.
And I get that, and
I know I'm going off the subject, you know, because now I'm going
No, but it's a good subject to talk about, because there are companies like that. There is Age UK. There is people going out to those older people. But I do understand that we need to be doing. I completely agree with you that we need to be doing more for our older generation. But actually, it seems like if you do a crime, you're thrown out of society, you're not listened to anymore. Well, you made that choice, you went off and did it, so you now suffer. We can't just throw these people off.
But are they, Nick, are they just getting thrown out? Because, like, I'm only going on what bit I know. Like I say, I don't really know anybody who's been inside either. But, you know, when they come out, they do get a probation officer or somebody, don't they? Or they go to a halfway house. And that, so that they do get support to go in the right direction, but it's then them going back because you know, they go on to whatever benefits and it's not enough, so then they go for the life of crime what they did before, because they can then, you know, get more money.
Well, the thing is, we've got to look at it differently, haven't we? Because if you think about it now in schools, you can't call a child a naughty child anymore.
No.
You can't say that child is naughty anymore. And the thing is, what we don't seem to take into account is this person's background. Is this person's family life? Is this person's way they've been brought up? Have they been around the wrong crowd? Have they? And we can't just throw these people into society and go, well,
but that's life. Everybody's different. Everybody's different. You know, just a normal people like myself, you know, but I personally feel that people in crime, they get a choice to do it or not to do it, you know, and if they do go inside, then I think personally they are looked after.
But I think the older generation are looked after as well.
But the older generation are still dying because they are not getting looked after.
So what do we do with these people then, Claire? Do we throw them in a cell, lock away and throw away the key and just leave them there to die? Is that
no, I think just basically swap them with those who are inside, so they do get 3 hot meals a day, a roof over their head, and a warden coming around to checking that they're okay. But, you know, that's not the way to go about it. What the way is, I don't know.
The answer is more public investment.
Oh, go on, Rachel, sorry. Go on.
It does seem wrong that there are aged community out there doing nothing wrong except growing old cold and forgotten, some of them. Not all of them. There are that, like Age UK, they do go around to people's houses and check they've got the right benefits, but they've got to be on the radar first of all. And if you're somebody that hasn't shown themselves to be on that radar, and some can get missed.
But that's the same for offenders, Rachel. They've got to be on the radar. They've got to be on the radar to improve lives. They've got to be on the radar, because the thing is, we are almost saying here as a panel, Vicky, I know you haven't spoken, but I'm almost saying that we're here as a panel saying they have made this choice. What if they wasn't supported enough as a child to make those right decisions? What if they've fallen in with the wrong people? It's not always that individual's fault. We need to be supporting a lot more than we're actually supporting.
You look at cuts to public funding, and you look to cuts to community services, and then you see the increased crime rates. I mean, you know, it doesn't take a lot to see you cut funding, you cut support, you cut the things that, you know, and there is money there. This whole myth of there's no money, you know, is a load of rubbish. Just research the fiat economic system that this country runs by. That's what it's called. Sit there and get it on Wikipedia and have a look how that works. It's not about money in a pot. That's just what either stupid people, charlatans, you know, crooks, that's what they call it. These politicians, they try and bamboozle people, but the economy doesn't work like that. You invest in the services that help people at the start. You save money because you're not spending money on the consequences. It's really simple, and it's idealistic is the reason that we're in this situation, because some people think that people should be punished and they should just do the right thing, but they've never lived in the life that a lot of people have, and they never come from the backgrounds, not got the learning disabilities, and not got, you know, the economic disadvantages. They've not lived on the streets. They don't know what these people go through and how they struggle with it and what mental places people go to, you know, and that unfortunately those are the people that are in charge of the economy, and they've never been in these situations. So, you know, invest in frontline services, that's the solution.
It's very complicating though, isn't it? It's all walks of life, and you can't ever say it's definitely from somebody's upbringing, because I know somebody that went totally off the rails and had a good parenting.
But the thing is as well, Rachel, the older generation have to take into consideration they need to be doing research as well. They need to be looking after themselves. They need to be looking into the right pot as well. So we can sit and say here that you can't always bring it to an upbringing, but we can also say on the older generation that if you don't do enough research and you don't research and you don't speak out and you stay quiet, it's on the same basis. So it's a two-way street.
I didn't say it was their upbringing. I said it can be upbringing. Most people, if you like, for me, if somebody was to say I'm going to have my liberty taken away from me, that would be enough not to offend again. But there are people out there who find it an easier life probably in prison to what they've come from.
But Rachel, you're saying that as a person that's never been on that road. So how can you possibly say this is how a person would feel and this is how can you say that?
I'm saying this is how I would feel, but I could imagine if somebody's living on the streets, wouldn't it be better to go somewhere where you have a roof over your head, some warmth and some food? It's not their fault that they've gone down this route. There's so many different ways of, this is why Vicky was saying investment into finding out why people do these things and trying to rehabilitate them. I do believe that is, but somebody like me, that would be enough for me. If my liberty was taken away from me, that would be enough punishment for me to go back and do it. But I've come from a privileged background.
Exactly.
I've had a family, I've had a home always, I've had people around me that love me, but there's not everybody has got that blessing. And the thing is, you can't say that about old age pensioners either, because they lose their capacity to ask after a while. Some do, some have got their capacity, their mental capacity, till they pop the clogs. But some people haven't, and they need that help. They need the encouragement to. But it's vast. This is, once you start talking about it, you don't realise there's so many different avenues to go down. Everybody's individual, and it's just not cut and dried. It really isn't, and it needs a lot of people with a lot of skills to make this work. And I don't think there is an easy answer to it at all.
I completely agree there, Rachel. But let me come over to you now. Do you think the benefit system is enough, and do you think the whole system needs re-looking at all over again?
Who, me?
Yeah. Do you think the benefit system is enough to survive nowadays? Do you think it's looked at fairly? Well,
you're looking at it now, going into the winter now, where it's looking pretty gloomy. So I haven't been on benefits until I've been on a bit of benefit now because of my disability, but I've not explored the benefit system because I've been married and I had a husband that worked for me and helped me. But I don't know, Vicky would probably be better to want to answer this because she knows more about the benefit system than I do, because I'm a newbie at it.
Go on, Vicky. Do you think the benefit system's enough in the year of 2021?
No, completely not at all. I mean, I'm a big fan of universal basic income. And if you actually look at that, and when I first heard about it, I was like, that is absolutely a load of rubbish. Just giving people money, it's just, but if you actually sit, and I went to some seminars and talks on it with economists who really know what they're talking about. And it's actually, when you actually nail into it and learn about it properly and not just go off your own, limited knowledge on these things, it makes a lot of sense. It actually saves the government a lot of money, and it gives people freedom and takes away that taboo of being in that. And it gives people the opportunity to not fall into debt, and to be able to deal with their lives, and it take time off if they've had, somebody in their life who've passed away, or, they've had a child, or they have to look after a disabled or sick relative. It gives people the freedom to do that without the shame and without all the caveats of sanctions and things like that. I mean, the basic, I've not really been on basic job seekers. I've always worked hard. At a time I've worked 80-hour weeks, you know, when I was younger, and I've packed boxes in warehouses and put stickers on boxes. You know, I've worked in stables when I've had to. Even though I had a degree, I still went and mucked out stables because I'd rather do that than have been in that situation when I could, you know. Unfortunately, when your health descends, that takes that option away from you, and there's less and less things you can do. A lot of workplaces are not, you know, wheelchair accessible. They're not put up for around disabilities. They don't like you going to the hospital regularly. They don't like the fact that some mornings you can't move, you know, things like that. It's not cut out for that. So unfortunately you fall on that. And even that system itself, the disability system, is an absolute shambles. It's disgusting. You spend so much energy as somebody with a disability trying to see the bright side of life, going out and looking at every tree and every bird and look at the sun. And then you have to sit there and fill out a 100-page document on why you're the most, you know, disabled, worthless human being in the world, and then they don't believe you. So you go into a courtroom and you sit with some 3 strangers that you've never met and you talk about your toilet routines. It's absolutely disgusting, to be honest. The whole system's disgusting, and it's all this prejudice that people think lazy people don't want to work, people just want to sit there, disabled people pretending they've got a bad back or yuppie flu or all this, you know. It's horrific, and it's a horrible way to think about it, because most people, and there's always going to be there's always going to be billionaires that don't want to pay taxes. There's always going to be people on the bottom that don't want to work. You know, you can't do anything about that. Forget it. Don't worry about it. Don't stress over it. You know, deal with the majority of people who do want to work, who do want a nice TV. They want to go on holiday. They want to be able to go to the supermarket without a budget. You know, that's what most people want to do. They want their children to be happy. They want them to have presents at Christmas. Nobody wants to sit in complete poverty without the heating on, you know, and unable to eat 3 meals a day. Nobody wants that, but unfortunately a lot of people are in that situation, you know. And people say, oh, there's food banks, but you know, I've got a MCAS, I've got an issue where I can't eat a lot of food. When I was without food, I couldn't access the food banks because they couldn't provide what I wanted, and the DWP told me to drink lots of water and sit down and rest a lot for 2 weeks before they could get my money to me. So I had to go without food for 2 weeks, and they didn't say that in a nice way. You know, there was no support there. It was, my health condition means I can't access certain services, so you have to go without food for 2 weeks over Christmas, you know. And that was quite normal for that system, and I don't think anybody wants to be in that situation.
No, I completely agree. And with stories like hearing this, Claire, does this worry you for your children as your children grow up? Does it put a fear in your heart as a parent?
Oh, totally. It's just really, just listening to Vicky then, it's just mind-blowing, you know, what she's gone through, let alone everybody else. I mean, hopefully, as my son gets older, things will be easier. But, you know, he's always got a room here, and I will always look after him till whenever, till whenever able to. But, oh, yeah, definitely. It's always frightening for your children anyway, abled or disabled. So you know, you've just got to try and stay positive yourself, to be there for when they're not feeling as positive as they could be.
Join our heated debate as we go forward about, do you think the benefit system in the UK is good enough nowadays? Do you think the world of disability is heard? And do you think burglary is a cry out for help, and we all sit in too high judgment seats, including myself, and we need to think about the wider picture. Have your say as well as ours. It's just as important that you discuss as well as we discuss. So we move on to a quite lighter topic to finish with, ladies, as Lincoln City fans will be able to bring a friend to the game against, I can't say this football team, so I apologise if I say it wrong. Akrian Stars. I can't say it. Right, another football team. Later this month, for just £1, you can bring your friend for just £1 as a new exciting to kick off there. The League One match against the Stanleys, I'm going to call them the Stanleys, will take place on Saturday the 27th of November at the Liner Stadium, and the club are inviting people to I hate this name, right? And I know it's about linking it to Lincoln City, but improduce. I can't even say it right. Improduce a friend for just £1. Vicky, do you think with football there are rules on the pitch? There should be stricter rules for fans, especially when alcohol is involved.
Yeah, I mean, it is an absolute shambles, isn't it? When there's a game on, it is an absolute nightmare. I mean, I don't like football. I used to play football when I was younger. I got into rugby. You know, that's the way I went. I'm not a huge football fan. I try and avoid it all the time. You're making me talk about it now. The only real thing I've had to do with football ever was when I used to play roller derby. We used to get hired out to do kind of like modelling jobs, but because we could skate. So I got hired by a football team, probably shouldn't say the name, within the East Midlands. And I was hired to hand out flyers, and they were having a disco night. So I had to dress in 1970s disco dress with a big wig on. And I had to skate around and hand out flyers. And I was sexually assaulted 3 times. And that was with a mentor who was going around with not a mentor, but somebody who was there, you know, making sure we were safe. And that was, you know, a lot of the men thought that was appropriate behaviour, you know, and it was absolutely disgusting. It was horrific. Luckily, you know, we were roller girls. We were pretty good at looking after ourselves, you know, but that situation shouldn't really have happened. And you see it on the news. You look at all these, you know, particularly it seems to be this country more than others. I don't know what it is. We seem to have a real issue with alcohol violence, whether it's that hyper masculine side of football that's the problem, you know, where they need to kind of show how manly they are, and whether that's what we need to tackle. You know, there's issues of racism and homophobia and all of that. Misogyny comes along with it. It's all part and parcel of the game at the minute. And, you know, I think a big thing that I have noticed, though, is somebody that really avoids football at all opportunities, is the impact that certain players have that I know who they are and I know their names. So looking at Rashford and Saka and various Team England players who are incredible role models. I think they're absolutely amazing. When I was younger, footballers were not really like that. You know, they were usually doing cocaine and getting done for rape, and you know, that was the role models of the day. And now we've got you know, a footballer that's out in Parliament and making sure kids can eat when they've got no food, and being the voice for so many in society that don't have access to a lot of stuff. And you know, it'd be really nice if, I think that's an amazing positive change, and I'd like to see that go forward, and I'd like to see that reflected in the football fans, that they should use the game for that purpose, really.
Thinking of a fan though, say like you had to go to a football match, Claire, when it came to chanting, would you be one of these people that be like, oh yes, very good, well done, or would you be, come on lads, come on, what would you be like?
Well, if you got me to a football match, then I'd hope that I'd want to be there, and then I would be, you know, gearing one. I don't know if it'd be like that. Yeah, come on. But yeah,
I could see Rachel at a football match. Oh, this is a jolly good game. This is a jolly good game. Well done, boys. Well done.
Oh, if I could kick you under the table, Nick.
I know. Yeah, me too.
If ever I went to a football match, I don't like Prosecco and I don't like football. I'd have to have a bottle of Prosecco or 3 bottles before I actually went to a football match. I detest it. I don't mind watching women's football because they play football.
You win.
Oh, now don't be sexist.
Oh.
Don't be sexist.
You see them move on a pitch, they're fast. You're not just waiting for one to get up off the floor. These men, you know, they're all prima donnas, aren't they, really? But or rugby. I can watch rugby. The thighs are much better.
I am there with you on all of that.
But do you think, Claire, football has been tackling over the last couple of years and fantastically tackling the subject of racism. Do you think actually it's a good place to start tackling the challenge of racism is at a football pitch?
Oh yeah, I do agree, but you get racism wherever you are. But the thing is, even in this day and age, we're still getting it. But and you hear the chants of people, not all people, but at football matches, at the players, but why can't they? Everywhere's got cameras and things now, so why can't they get them? And again, alcohol is a wrong thing, I think, for football matches, and you have people who go to football matches for the violence. They don't, or the racism. They don't go for the enjoyment of watching their team play. So more can be done, and I think they need to do that, and they need to ban those that are doing it.
Yeah, I vote for Claire to be our next Prime Minister. I vote Vicky. And I'll just be the one that holds the things. Come on, Vicky. Come on. But on a bit of a funny last topic, really. If I was in charge of all football and I came up to you and said you have to create a football team based on your name, what would your football team be called? Rachel, let's go to you first. What would you call yourselves?
Rachel's Roving Rabbits.
Oh.
I said roving rabbits. Roving. Or Rachel's Rovers. I had rabbit in my head and rovers.
Just romping rabbits.
You've always got rabbits in your head, Rachel.
Oh.
What about you, CBM? What would you call yours?
Who?
CBM.
Oh, CBM. Oh, yeah. Well, it could be CBM Wanderers, but I was saying Browning May Wanderers.
Browning Way Wanderers.
May, not Way.
Rachel would definitely be there with a Prosecco. Well done, Wanderers.
You're a wanderer.
What about you, Vicky? What would your team be called?
Well, I mean, my name means victorious, and I'm descended from Vikings, so it'd have to be Victorious Vikings, I guess, would be the only one if I was forced into this situation that I have been.
Good one. Come on then,
That
Nick.
brings us to the end of the show. Right, Vicky's wrapped it up there.
What's yours?
What's yours?
Mine would be NJ Johns.
You all sound quite plausible. I don't.
Not like your romping rabbits, Rachel.
Roving rabbits.
Oh.
Unfortunately, that brings us to the end of the show. But thank you for joining us this evening. Will you thank my panel for tonight? She's always romping, and that's our Rachel. She's always standing for the corners of people that she can defend. That's Vicky Pearson. And the person that will not stay quiet in the corner, that's Claire Browning May. Join us next week where we have a brand new panel. I just wanted to discuss with you that we are running till about the 15th of December, and we stop about the 15th of December for the end of Series 3. Can you believe that? The end of Series 3 will be the 15th of December. But we have this year for you a Christmas Eve special. We will be on your screens at 9 o'clock Christmas Eve, telling you all the stuff. It's a bit like a Christmas party, really. So come and join us. There's 2 of us, there's 3 of us on the panel tonight that's going to be there, and we're all going to be dressed up. But there's a twist. to our dress up. So come and join us and you'll find out a little bit more. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We will go quiet now as we say our very special thank you and goodbye to Georgina in our own very special way. Good night, God bless, and we'll see you next week. Take care, bye-bye.
Bye.
Your heart is true, you're a pal and a confidant.